So what can we say about this new episode of Game of Thrones, episode 5? Being where I'm in the world right now, I have to get this episode online, and that's incredible. HBO has been very good in taking them down as soon as we post them up, but they did not anticipate foreign language subs of the episodes. So I watch a French sub of Game of Thrones. Of course, you have to wait through French websites to find them. But I know enough French so I can find them. And there's French subs, and here I am, an English speaker, watching a French sub of an English episode. But anyway, so this episode is very good in terms of character development. In the past four, I got the sense of there are too many things going on, and then you have to keep track of all of them. And if you hadn't read the books, you would. I can feel like if you're a new viewer and you've never read the books, there would be a sense of impatience. There'd be impatience of like, what does it all mean? And I read the books. I read the books a very long time ago, so I don't really much remember, but I know that enough that things would happen. But and here finally episode 5, you see things heating up, and you see, and it's not so much things heating up, but you also see people who you thought were bad, or people who you thought that were unlikable, had finally had something within them that was good, or something something human. The first example would be I guess in the openings, the first example would be the joust with the hound. After the joust with the hound and the mountain, although the mountain didn't get was shown as really angry guy and very, very unlikable. But you also see that the Hound, who is a guard for the Lannisters, you also see that he had something in him, and well, it's a question really of if he. It's a result. You can ask yourself if he really went in there to save. What was his name? If he went in there to save Tyrell, because he went in there to save Tyrell, but he went in there because he found an opportunity to finally fight his brother. But still, whatever. And it still looks good on him that he went in there to save the knight. But also, what's also good about that fight is that when the king, finally stands up and demands into the fight, the Hound spins around and kneels before the king, and the mountain sword just barely like sweeps over the kneeled Hound. So it's sort of like I thought that was a good choreography right there. It looked a little stiff, but still, the fact that they did that there was nice. I like that. What else do we see? Oh, then we have Ned, who is still in his who is still in this strange place, strange town, trying to figure out what the hell is going on. But he's I said personally, I'm not so much of a fan of a Ned character, because I think maybe because I feel maybe I know he's supposed to be the moral compass. Here's a guy with authority and wealth, and he still keeps a moral compass, which is a very hard thing to do. But personally, I'm not so much of a fan of that, because I feel like people with moral compasses don't really they get to they get to fixate it on the principles rather than the actual situation. But still, he's a good moral compass in the midst of all these people who are just immoral and evil and selfish. So he's still good, right? So we find him like debating them at the table with all of the lords against the king over the fate when they finally learn about Daenerys Targaryen having the child with the Dothraki, and apparently that gives her some leverage on like crossing the sea and and invading the Seven Kingdoms. And he objects to assassination, which what it is to he objects to nipping them in the bud, which was very violent. I guess it's supposed to, and it almost had the echoes of the debate here in the United States of like the use of torture and the use of like if had the use of torture had like principle and like how much did you hold your principles when people's when multitudes of lives are at stake. So he had this sense that he could. It was a good moral debate, but I thought it was nice tension filled, but it left me feeling a little bit because here you had him Ned Stark fighting for the principle, and then the rest of the people at the table were like a bit cold, and they're like, yes, principle, but the people, which. And so we have, all these people like, Renly, Varys, Baelish. They're all there. They are very coldly advocating for the principle, for the people's plight, which is a strange thing to do. And then you get the voice for the people's plight, the booming voice of Baratheon, the king, who is fighting for the thing. But then the problem with the king is that he has sort of a how would we call it? He's a not serious, the guy who always wants to go there like a macho guy, but who's not very who's still not very serious about about his responsibilities. But there you see a bit to him that even though he's sort of this lazy guy, fat, really disgusting, and how he got to be king, even though you see this in him, you see that he actually cares about the people, but then it's another question of, does he really care? Is he really caring about the people versus he's caring more about the fact that the scion of the Targaryens was still left. Right? So it came across more that he cares more that the Targaryens are still left. He wants to kill them all, not because of the threat of the kingdom, but the Targaryens are still left. So it's sort of, maybe the scene is a bit, maybe the scene is a bit one-sided in terms of the emotional force for the case of principle. I would have liked another, another emotional, an equally emotional force for the case of, of the, an equally emotional force, emotional argument against for the, who stood up for lives of people who are at stake and another war coming on. And then what else? Oh yes, and then we have the case of the and then there's one gay scene. It's more like, so it turns out that the joust earlier with the Tyrell Knight, the Knight of the Vale, who is pretty much a pretty boy, it's in Japanese, a bishi. And then he has a patron, so to speak, among the along the governing table with I believe is Lord Renly, and then they sit there and he's it's funny, the guy he's shaving the man's chest, which was sort of it was well, touching in terms that is funny, but still it's also it was a bit not stereotypical, but it's just funny. I guess it was funny that you have these guys who are homosexual, but somewhat still effeminate, especially the Lord Renly guy, who's he can't fight, he can't do anything, and and he somewhat envies those like the King Barthon and Ned Stark who have fought, who have thrown their man the chops, and he can't do anything, and he feels sort of maybe, I don't know if jealous is the word, or feels sort of lost without meaning, it's on purpose,